never say die.
Only because
Just feel jaded, defeated and frustrated. Keep wishing maybe somehow I could change my
yeah, I was gonna say you have control over your own audio.
like a sheep inside wolf's clothing. I'm so filled with fear and loathing, and I worry that I'll never find my place. And I'm held hostage by these hotels. I could go out, but there's no telling what waits for me out there. Except I'm sure it isn't you. And me and what I really have been talking this thing out. We've been pondering life's mysteries. What is it all about? When the world teams up against us, we look it in the eye, and then dive in head first, screaming, hey you guys. Goonies never say die. Cause our lives take different courses. We get married, get divorces. Our regrets and our remorses wear us down until we die. So we just keep moving forward, onward, up Excelsior. Because persistence is the one resource we have that won't run dry. Yeah, me and what I really have been talking this thing out. We've been pondering life's mysteries. What is it all about? When the world teams up against us, we look it in the eye and dive in head first, screaming, hey you guys. Goonies never say die. Goonies never say die. Goonies never say die. Goonies never say die. Die. It must be Thursday. I never got the hang of Thursdays. Cause there's just too many Mondays in my life. And it's been one long left turn for the last 300 miles. It seems everything I need was on the right. And I feel like giving in, but my mind keeps wandering back to that night Brand talked his girlfriend down the way. Yeah, me and what I really have been talking this thing out. We've been pondering life's mysteries. What is it all about? When the world teams up against us, we look it in the eye, then dive in head first, screaming, hey you guys. Goonies never say die.
Frankie really doesn't like us, so oh yeah, so I'm going live right there, right on. How is everyone doing?
Yay!
Awesomely.
Great.
Fantastic.
Man, that looks neat. Oh, my computer's having problems. Right on. How is everyone doing?
Fantastic.
Doing great tonight.
Compared to others, doing amazing. Compared to
Awesome.
some, not as much.
Well, let's see. Tonight we have Susanne Lambden, the zombie lady. We have John Pick, who just finished up Out Here in Kansas, and you've got a new project coming soon. And
Yeah,
we've got
working on a new documentary. Yeah.
excellent. We've got Denny Roth, who is working on Marshall Star, and so yeah, we've got some great things going on. Denny's, we've got your still picture, but on Skype we're watching. So yeah, we've got some great things going on. Denny's,
Apparently,
we've got your
Apparently, there's a reverb.
I can hear
there
the
we go.
reverb too.
That should do that. I had my audio come back up, and now we're good to go. So let's talk about some of the new projects that are coming up. What's going on, Susanne?
Well, Work-wise, I've got 2 books I have to get to my publisher tomorrow in my Realm of Magic series. So the second book's getting published here pronto, and the third book goes to my editor. So those are big things. So I've been working my butt off the past few weeks getting both books ready. So, book 1, Secret Magic, came out a few months ago, and so then I've had the book 2 with my editor, and so when the editor edits, he sends it back to me, and then I approve the editor's edits, and then I end up editing as well. So I've got actually your mother is proofing my book for me yesterday and today and tomorrow to get it ready, book 2, and then book 3 goes to the editor, and then a bit later will come back to me. So that's what I've been working on here the past couple of weeks. Nice.
John, where are you in your production work? I mean, John just had surgery. He's a real road warrior right now because he just had part of his intestine just ripped out of him by a wild coyote. And
be careful with them, Nuisha. They're nasty when they want to teach a lesson.
Right.
and I probably deserved it. So.
What did you learn, John?
I learned to keep my guts where they belong next time.
That's a good lesson.
And then my guts have shit for brains.
Oh, hey, we gotta keep PG. We're in a gaming store.
Right.
No.
I gaming store.
The S word, we can say it up to 4 times, so you got to be careful.
I'm down to.
Oh, and he's used one of those times now.
Oh, you just ruined it for the rest of us, John.
Thanks a lot.
The other 3 are your guys's now, so.
Right. Must use it properly for the most comedic effect.
That's right.
Gotcha.
So you're working on a new documentary.
We are. We just started. Well, we didn't just start. We've been in production for probably about 6 months now, here and there when we can, on a documentary about the Wichita Wings, the 1980s to 90s indoor soccer team, which is kind of a far cry from our last documentary, which is about being gay in Kansas. But the guy that directed that one, Adam Knapp, is very excited about this next project. And for my part, my role has kind of been to manage the fun, the 80s part of it. We're working on in our research, we came across a long lost theme song for the Wichita Wings. And it's really super 80s, super cheesy, and really terrible. And so one of the things we wanted to do was create the music video for that theme song that never existed. And so now I'm in the role of kind of casting and choreographing and trying to get just all the things to fall in line for creating this really Olivia Newton-John, let's get physical style music video kind of thing. So getting to work with dancers and models, and it's just terrible right now for me.
Yeah, I imagine so. Working with all those beautiful people around you.
Can't stand it.
Yeah, Denny, what are you currently working on? And then we'll go back and we'll start talking about some of the other projects that we've all been working on. What you got, Denny?
Well, as you guys kind of started right now, I'm working on Martial Star Chapter 2, actually, since Chapter 1 was published back in April. And so far, reception for that's been pretty good, so just keeping working on that. I do have, for DR Studios, though, I am working on another line of prints, but they're really going to be kind of complicated, more complicated than what I normally do. So they're going to require a lot more pre-thought and a lot more skill acquisition before I'm ready to finish those up. And they're going to be kind of a series that I wanted to do for years, and I just haven't had the skills to do them yet. So what it is it's kind of a bit of an erotica series. So I'm not, and because we're in a comic shop, I can't go too much into it, but it's basically called Dragons and Maidens is what I'm calling the print series.
Okay. So the print series is Dragon and Maidens, but you'll have them at, how do people find something like that?
I'll have them on my DR Studios on my DeviantArt. I'll also have them on a couple other kind of erotica special websites. And provided the convention will let me have them, especially more adult or more grown-up conventions, I'll probably have them sold as prints as well. But I need to get them finished because I have them currently in pre-production at the moment. Excellent.
All right, let's take a step back. And stuff that I'm working on, of course, are the Con Artist video chats every week, and then I've got Saw Some Con this weekend, and then a big old haunted house, which is going awesomely. but we'll talk more about that in the next couple of months. So, Suzanne, how did you learn that you wanted to be a writer?
Honestly, when I was 8 years old, my brother was 8 years older than me, and he was only 16 at the time, was writing a novel, and I admired him immensely. And so I thought, well, hell, if he's writing a book, I'm going to write a book too. So I ended up by hand writing a 250-page novel when I was 8 years old. And I knew then that I, wanted to be a writer, and I have been writing since I was 8.
Mm-hmm. John,
and now it's a dream come true.
It's a dream come true. John, when did you know you wanted to work in photography and videography?
The last documentary that we did, I was approached by Adam Knapp, who ended up directing the film, about 3 years ago now, right after I got divorced and kind of went through a lot of personal life changes. I just lost a job and was kind of just didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself. And he called me for a meeting, and he was like, hey, I got this idea for a movie. Do you have any idea how to do that? And I was like, no, I don't. But let's try anyway. And we ended up, 2.5 years later with a finished film that I think I'm immensely proud of. And it's just one of those things where I had just made a promise to myself at that point that, having gone through all of those life changes, that I wanted to, it was my year of yes, so to speak. And so I kind of want my natural inclination is I can talk myself out of anything. And so, whether it's going to a party or, dating somebody, I'm like, no, I don't know, maybe I'll talk my way out of it. And I committed myself to just saying yes to any opportunity that came to me at that point. And I did, and ended up with a really great product that I was really happy with. So, and now we're just going to keep doing more of that.
Excellent. Denny, when did you find out you wanted to draw comics and do graphics?
Well, I've always drawn since I could remember, and if anyone would ever meet my parents, they would tell you the first memory I have probably is drawing something somewhere, probably where I wasn't supposed to be. So I've always drawn, and for a long time it's been more of a hobby because I've always focused on being more in the paleontological world because I've always been interested in dinosaurs and in monsters and stuff like that. So I actually when I went to school, that was my focus, was in paleontology. So I got a lot of anatomy background for when I'm doing stuff like this. But it took a visit to some friends, and because people would commission me, they want me to do projects for them. I was like, okay, I don't know how to price myself. But I ended up going to a convention called Kawakon with some friends. And I ran into an artist group that was there, very prolific in the community here, and they're called MuseTap. I want to give them a shout out. They do a lot of fan art, a lot of fan projects, a lot of fan art prints. And I went to a couple panels of theirs because I like going to art panels. I like seeing how other artists draw because there's always something you can learn from whenever you see them working on their stuff. And they made the comment that, anyone in this room can do what we do. And it kind of got me inspired to go around and start doing conventions as a print artist or a con artist, double meanings. And from there, I've kind of wanted to grow out from being known as just a very good Godzilla artist or a very good Sonic artist. I wanted to be known as kind of want to do my own thing. And I've done a couple of my own little comics, my own little web comics. I had 3 of them running for a couple of years actually, but I want to kind of do my own thing, get recognized for my own work. So that's kind of where I started leaning towards this idea that I have that eventually became Martial Star, and I've been working on that ever since.
Okay, right on.
Well, you do a great job, man. I always look.
Thanks,
I always enjoy seeing your stuff. So.
And like I said, there was a comment about earlier before in the pre-show that I've been getting a whole bunch of offers from people who want me to draw their graphic novel, and I'm sitting here going, you don't have any money, do you? The answer is no, then no dice. I need the money up front if you want me to do anything of worth for you. Because that's the other thing that's big for me as I've learned as an artist is that, and I think John will agree, and I think even Suzanne will agree to an extent as well, that you need to get paid for your work and for for your work and what you're worth. Because that's kind of an important thing, because the term starving artist is very literal, but you don't see lawyers going around doing free lawyering for the exposure, do you?
Right.
There's this wonderful stigmata about artists being, free and cheap, and that the exposure will get them the stuff they need because I don't really want to be bothered to pay you. kind of thing, which is a terrible thought to have, I think.
Sure. No, well, one of the themes that continuously comes up here on Con Artist is that in order to make money as an artist, you have to be dedicated and you have to be actively working every single day. Susanne,
true.
how do you keep your discipline up? How do you work every single day?
And I do work every single day. Yeah. It is a mindset, and eventually I think it becomes addictive, at least for me as a writer. So if I'm not writing, I kind of feel, unless I'm at a con and those are like my work weekends, I feel like I'm kind of wasting my time, and I get suffer a little bit of anxiety if I'm not constantly writing and producing, because nobody wants to be published or sell more books than I do. So, and I've invested a lot of money and time to promote my own career and to get things going. And just over time, I don't know, I kind of found a formula of the writing style that I use that works, and it's very easy. That's terrible to say. When I say easy, we're talking over like a 40-year period, right? Now it's easy for me to sit down and think of the book, what I want to write, the characters pop to mind, the writing style and the flow, it's all there. But this is something that has taken, I'll just say 40 years for me to get to the level of writing that I'm at now. And I bet I've written a novel every year my entire life. And so I talked to one of my friends today that's an author, and I tried to tell her, just because you write a book doesn't mean it's any good. Doesn't mean that it should be published. You have to, as an author, hone your craft, and you get better, just like an artist with painting. Even like Denny, every picture that he's drawn, he's not selling all of them. Maybe you are, but I think over time, right, you're developing it, you're getting better and better, and eventually you write a really good book, and that's the one you go with. And so since I have been writing professionally since 2012, so I have just, every morning I get up, I exercise for about an hour with my dogs and hit the weights, and then I sit down and then I work, and I'm still at my computer. I've been here all freaking day, and I've been doing this every day, especially when I have deadlines. And when I want to get a book out, get it edited, send it to the betas and alpha readers, you have to be on top of it, because there's thousands of writers out there that I don't want to say I'm competing with, because there's room on a library shelf for all of us. But at the same time, you kind of are competing, and maybe I'm competing with my own goals that I set. So I bust my balls every day to get up and sit down and work. The common thing I hear, when do you hear from other writers, other people, when do you find time? You know what? You make the time. You sacrifice not spending time with your family and your friends. And I'm virtually a freaking hermit when I'm working on a project until it's done, unless I go to the Comic Cons. And when I go to those, then I'm always slightly frustrated because I want to work and write, but I won't use a freaking laptop, I'll tell you that. They're evil. I won't use them. But yeah, so I've taught myself how to be disciplined, and you know what? Now I am, and it works for me.
Mm-hmm. Nice. John, how do you keep yourself moving? Like you and I have talked on length about what it's like to be permanently sick and try to do full-time work. How do you keep yourself busy and motivated?
It's frustrating, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they made the comment to me. I think it was one of my good friends from Kansas City who said that I'm the busiest unemployed person he knows, and that's probably true. Is that when I do have good days and I'm not feeling well, I try to make sure that I stay on top of whatever project I'm working on. But up until this surgery, it's been kind of a crapshoot, especially the last few months. Just one day you think you're going to be good enough to do something, and then you kind of have to have a good support group too, especially with what I do. To be able to hand off, say, okay, I'm going to delegate this to somebody else, and say, I can't be there today. I just can't do it. I physically cannot get out of bed. And so people that you trust is important. People that you work well with is important. But when it comes down to the things that I'm doing, you kind of have to take it day by day and hope that you can get through. Yeah,
I dig. Denny, what makes you get to draw on every day? Or promoting, or all the things that you have to do.
Everything I've got to do for it. It's funny you mentioned that, because I think I've been commented on by my co-writer that I am the heaviest promoter of Marshall Star and my stuff that he's ever seen for a promoter or self-promoter for that. It's kind of funny, but there's a muse to my drawing, and it's because I have a very active imagination. and I have that drive to take what I have in my mind and put on paper, especially if in my mind it looks freaking cool. Especially for some of my art prints, my Godzilla versus series, where it's like Godzilla versus Superman and Batman. I've been getting a lot of requests to finish my Godzilla versus Wonder Woman. I've stopped, restarted, and done from scratch at least 5 times now. It's my imagination won't let me stop. I keep thinking of cool things and scenes and events, and I think in images and I think in movement. And I want to try and present that out in a physical format so I can show other people, look, this is what's going through my head. Are you disturbed yet? You should be. And a lot of it is, and I think Susanne and Jean also kind of get that a little bit. I imagine as artists, we have to think kind of differently about what we do and how we do it, because I don't think it's fair to say not everyone can do what we do. I think everyone can do what we do if they put forth the effort in their own way, and they put forth the thinking process in their own way. But for me, I'm thinking of these things and these scenes and this stuff, and it just comes across to me personally, at the very least, is just really freaking cool, and I want to show this to people. Part of my drive is that I want to show this to people, and part of my drive for my print work is partially financially motivated. Other times it's I want the recognition for doing something, that's coming across as being easily recognizable, almost viral in a couple of instances. But at the same time, I'm also kind of doing it because I want to do it. I want to see these things in my head on a physical format, because the challenge for me is getting it down onto the paper straight from my mind, which is still a challenge. And it's a challenge for anyone trying to do that, I think. But there are some people who are better at it because they've gone through all the other steps and all the time, and they can produce that, and that's kind of what makes their work worthwhile.
Denny, do you ever find yourself limited by resources, man? Like just the stuff that you want to do, you'd love to do it. I mean, I know you talked about people who can't necessarily pay to do the work, but finding what you need to do the work, sometimes you find that you're limited by that.
In some instances, and I have a couple of comments on this, so I'm going to be very preachy, don't mind me. I have seen people who have taken literally nothing and done amazing stuff with it. I have seen and been told stories of people who are told, like, for when, because I do a lot of digital art, if you don't have the brush, you don't have the right brush, you can't do the effect, and you need that brush to do that effect because you can't do it yourself. Right. But there's been artists who have gone around and painted amazingly with a single brush type, and it's amazing. The one story that our friend CJ likes to tell, which I love this story, is because there was a digital artist who was asked about brush types he uses. He says he just uses like a handful because that's all he needs. And so he made a comment about, like, how can you do that with all those others? So he made, in this little workshop, a brush made in a very phallic shape, and proceeded to paint with that phallic shape this amazing piece of art. And he's like, that's why you can, the tools you have are not all this extra bells and whistles stuff you have. You have the tools to do what you need to do. For myself, I've gone through a number of resources, though. I've gone through charcoal, I've gone through graphite, I've pastels, oil paints I can't do worth crud. But as far as like resources, what I need to do on it, the one thing that I found was a really big help, because I used to do this, if you imagine this, I would have an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with a drawing on it. I would actually take a India ink and a quill pen, artisan calligraphy quill pen, diligently ink it, wait for the ink to dry, erase all of the pencil sketch, scan it, and then proceed to color it with a mouse on Photoshop. Nowadays, I'm looking at it going, I'm doing so much more with a tablet and my new display tablet, which is amazing, because it's equipment I didn't really need, but I really wanted. And I'll have to admit, though, when I got this display tablet driver, it's actually made me focus more, so I'm not as easily distracted, because I have a 2-monitor setup. So I placed one of the monitors for this thing, and it's made me get into a better sitting position to work on it. It's made me kind of cancel out all the noise and extra stuff I have going on my other monitor. It's improved my workflow because it's forced me to change.
Okay. Yeah.
But it wasn't a necessary purchase, but it was something that I wanted. And that did help in that instance. But as far as resources, I've done this from, again, pencil on ink on paper to coloring it all with a mouse. So,
well, that reminds me of, I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Rodriguez and his films, Desperado and all that, you know, El Mariachi and all that. And he wrote a book on filmmaking. It kind of reminds me of one of the things that really stuck with me with that story was that he said, you know, before he set out to make a film, he looked at what his resources were. And he says, okay, I have access to a guitar, a bus, and a turtle. And those are the three things he knew he could put into his film. And he took $8,000 and went and made his very first film, El Mariachi. And he knew that he had those three things. He fit those three things in there. And he said, that's all I have, so let's do it. And he ended up creating this whole career for himself. And now he's got his own home-based studio. And he's done lots and lots of movies. But it's just like, what do I have at my disposal that I can actually do right now? And I think that's what a lot of artists kind of have to do is what do I have and what can I do?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't have it, you have to ask for it.
Yes.
Or you have to save up to get that in my instance for this tablet driver. Because, again, I love this thing. It's a UG. It's amazing. But I was also doing work on just a regular pen tablet for the last almost 9 years.
Yeah.
But the technology is nice to have, and the resources are nice to have, but you're not necessarily, as you said with your example and with my example with the artist, you don't absolutely need them. Because I've seen people do amazing stuff on just, you know, a piece of paper and some Copics pens. They're amazing.
If you're hungry enough, you'll create it, right?
Yes.
Right. Isn't that always the thing? Susanne, you still there?
I am. I'm just looking at Denny's cool screen and.
I know. Is anybody else just kind of mesmerized by watching him work? Like I keep forgetting to talk.
It is. And I know other people can't see what we're looking at, but this is the most fascinating thing I've ever seen, and makes me wish I was an artist and I had that talent that I could draw, and then had that computer savvy that I could use a program like this to create something. It's mesmerizing.
The one complaint I have about this is that because of I'm still trying to mess with the screen displays because my colors are off just a bit, but I don't know if it's the backlight or if it's the actual red, blue, green settings I've got on here. But my colors are a little bit off on both on my screen from my other screen. It throws me off just enough, and it's making coloring a little bit difficult. But I'll work around it.
You know, what's interesting with John, you being a filmmaker and Denny being an illustrator, when I am writing a book, it's not so much that I see the words are just there. I visualize, and it's a movie that plays out in my head. And so then it's a matter of me describing to you, the reader, what it is I see in my head. But my books play out like a movie. So I visually see it and then try to quickly write down what it is that's playing out or what's being said, because it kind of takes a life of its own inside of your head, which I guess kind of makes me a little bit crazy, but that's how I approach a book. It's almost like a film or even a graphic novel in my head, and then how do you describe it, and then the words just kind of fall into place.
When I had
a little bit crazy to do what any of us does, so it's all right.
Well, I was going to add there, because I used to do a lot of writing as well, especially in high school. I did admittedly a lot of fan fiction. So yes, you can all, flame me with torches and everything else.
I love fan fiction.
Are we going to start talking monster sex? Is that what's going on?
No, not that kind of stuff. I never published that online. But I did a lot of fan fiction, of course, and kind of like with Susanne, with how I approach creativity and how I approach my stuff is, since I see it in moving and pictures and all this other stuff, I see it like, especially when I'm doing like a graphic novel, or even when I'm watching and imagining writing a story, like how do I describe what's going on here? I envision it as if it is a moving entity of its own. In case for some of my work, I used to think of it like this really kind of dark tone, serious toned anime style. And I've got Martial Star, which is obviously anime inspired. It's also in my head. I've got these scenes in my head of what they are when I'm reading our scripts, and I've got to stop and break that down into the scenes and then set that up kind of like what John does for his movies, and got to set it up like, here's my establishing shot, here's my focus, here's my negative space, here's my framing device. So I've got to look at it from what's going on in my head to putting it on paper and then modifying the paper to make it look actually somewhat presentable.
Gotcha. Nice. So where do you guys? Well, we got someone from the Peanut Gallery here. Hi,
Hi, Jason Petty.
nice to meet you, Jason. I'm Jelly Bean,
Nice to meet you.
and we're here with Suzanne with the Dead Heart series. She's also known as the Zombie Lady.
Good night.
Okay, excellent. And Denny and John. But yeah, I just wanted to recognize that we're starting to have some people here at Game Nut Entertainment on Iowa Street, and they may ask questions right away. Where do you guys usually find inspiration? You know, you do all these very diverse things. Suzanne's working anywhere from zombies to wizards. John's working about people coming out and people playing indoor soccer. And then Denny's got the Marshall Star and Guide You. What inspires you? What makes you want to create?
Well, I tend to be a little bit of a facilitator in my role. You know, I have been a producer on a couple of films that I've worked on. So for me, neither of those was necessarily a personal story that I wanted to tell, but I wanted to help someone else bring their vision and their story to light. I do have a couple of ideas of my own that I want to throw around. And I think you and I have talked about. One of them was the idea about doing a healthcare related documentary, which will be a little more meaningful to me, at least, just in terms of, you know, the people who have illnesses that, you know, because of the state of healthcare in America right now, and people who will just die because they're sick and they can't get the help they need. And I think that is an important story to tell. And then in terms of like my photography, you know, I look at so many things, and I've had, you know, kind of a weird brain my whole life, and so just trying to figure out a way to take all of those nuts and bolts that have just been loose for the longest time and figure out a way to turn that into a vision to create something beautiful that people want to look at and that they enjoy. So
Nice. Denny, how about you? Where do you get inspiration?
I get my inspiration from just a lot of sources that I guess attract me visually. I mean, for a while, like I said, you guys all know I'm a big kaiju fan. I'm a big Godzilla fan because I like the big guy. The big guy is one of the most famous movie monsters in the world.
Yeah.
And he means a lot to me because in a lot of ways as a kid he was a lot like me. I was big and awkward and, you know, clumsy and all this other stuff. And it's like, you know, if the clumsy one can be the hero, why not me? You know. But for some of my inspiration just comes from just I think about these monsters and I think about what they do, and then you add in like extra anime and you add in comic books and the stuff there, and you add in like movies like Star Wars. It just show you these amazing worlds, and you just try and draw from that experience of just that euphoria you get from watching the first Death Star battle to the first time you're playing Sonic the Hedgehog and you're running through Emerald Hill Zone with Tails following you, just going through these loops, just going through the zone so super fast. Just that exhilarating feeling of just wanting to show that and share that kind of experience. And then, of course, ties into what I was saying earlier about, you know, kind of my own stuff to share the exhilaration there. And I will say this also, music. Music's a big inspiration. I imagine for any creative force, music brings out so many forces of, you know, joy, happiness, sadness, anger, sorrow, self-doubt, self-realization. And I listen to a variety of music. I'm trying to expand my variety as well, so I can listen to a lot of other stuff I don't listen to that often. But the songs bring images to my mind, and I work with that, and of course my own imagination is like, I want to do this sounds cool, and I want to write this up, and then I want to try and draw this to give this an actual physical form. And it just kind of self-perpetuates itself as it goes. So it starts with something I like, and then my imagination takes it and just runs with it. Just runs like Forrest Gump all the way to Vietnam, and it's then runs all the way back, and it's changed so much since then that it's almost unrecognizable. But I still remember where it starts from. But it just all runs. But it's a combination of everything I've ever watched and I've enjoyed, plus a lot of music mixed into it helps.
Nice. Suzanne, what about you? Where do you get your influence? Where do you get your what gives you mojo?
So I think what I want to start out with saying, you know, I'm a child of the 60s. So before any of you guys were even born, and back in the 60s, you know, we had 3 TV channels and they were black and white. So a lot of the TV shows, you know, instead of sitting there watching TV or cartoons on Saturday, which I did, I would spend a lot of time reading. And if I wasn't reading, then I was outside playing. And when I played with my friends, and in particular, maybe even my siblings, did a lot of a fantasy play and really developing your imagination. You know, what do you do on a rainy day when you can't go outside and the black and white TV is too boring or it's fuzzy coming in and out? And I learned how, I guess, really how to fantasize and come up with story ideas in my head, whether or not I played this with my friends. My girlfriends used to get pissed off at me. I remember someone crying, "Why do we always have to play Knights of the Round Table or Musketeers?" It's like, well, what other stupid thing you want to be? You know, girls in history never really had great roles, so I kind of identified as with men or guys as a child and was a big history fan. And I write about knights and the things I write about now, which then were seen as a little bit more manly or masculine than they are right now. So I really developed my imagination, but at the same time, a lot of my inspiration, you know, it does come from a lot of the books. As I've read thousands of books in my lifetime, so my imagination is really vivid, but it's extremely visual. So when I watch movies or even TV shows, even at a young age, I used to fantasize about being in the TV show. So that's why I'm a big supporter of fan fiction now, because I think it's wonderful. I think it's a way that it teaches writers how to come up with a plot and even how to use their words to describe a story. So movies really influenced me. And then, as you know, being a child of the 60s means Star Trek was on when I was really little. So, and then eventually, then I loved Star Trek enough that I moved out to Los Angeles and went and wrote for the TV show. So even then, as a kid, I would fantasize being on the Enterprise. And before fan fiction was fan fiction, I used to write freaking fan fiction. And that's right. So my inspiration.
I wrote fan fiction before it was cool.
Why? It's not a country song. This is a country song.
You know what? This is like people now that like Deadpool, and I guess I would be one of those. But now Deadpool's cool. But back when, the other people that really liked him, and then everyone else likes him now. So, but yeah. So
everyone was stuck on Wolverine for about 15 years. Where Deadpool was the cool Canadian.
Watch what you're saying.
That's where my inspiration comes from, Mark. Is just an overdeveloped imagination, because when I was a kid, I didn't have all the stuff that kids have now, which all you guys are extremely spoiled, and you think about all the things that you have. And I know some of you you're in your 30s now, but you grew up with a lot more than what I had. Since I have 20 years or more on you guys. And so because of that, then I had to really almost learn how to be with yourself and use your imagination and keep myself from being bored. I would write. Mm-hmm. So
I think I don't know about being, but I think that I maybe was still at the tail end of that, because I remember having 3 channels growing up. We didn't have cable in my house, and so it was very similar to what you're describing. And it's even more weird for me, because I did kind of grow up as that weird kid who had the same kind of experiences you're talking about. And it's so odd for me now to like have this be like the mainstream stuff at this point. Like there's 20 comic book movies a year coming out at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's so bizarre to me, because like I remember being so on the outskirts of like liking those things. And even up until about like 6 or 7 years ago, I felt kind of like it was hard to find the stuff that I would like to have, you know, the weird goofy shirts or whatever. And now I feel like Target, that's all they sell anymore.
I find it funny you guys are talking about having 3 channels. We had 2, and one of them was terrible. We had ABC and CBS, and I lived out in the middle of nowhere.
Where were you at? Danny, where'd you grow up? Because, you know, I was out there past Hayes, out in Grainfield and Go for a while, so I kind of know that life. But where were you from?
I'm actually not from Kansas.
Okay.
I'm actually from Montana. Southeastern Montana, the Cheyenne Indian Reservation.
Yeah, absolutely nothing out there.
Oh, God, you have no idea. But shout out to Lame Deer and all my friends from out there. So Matt, Adam, Josh, Mark, Bobby, if you're listening.
Hey, guys.
But no, we lived literally 10 miles either way from either Lame Deer or Busby on property.
2 towns I have no idea about.
Exactly. Both of them are on the reservation. We actually lived on reservation land, and lived in a trailer just off the highway. So, and nestled in between 2 hills, because you actually drove up a small hill, then turned a bit and drove up a bigger hill, and then went down the slope and pulled into the the house here. And we got like a really weak ABC signal from Billings.
Mm-hmm.
No, ABC signal came from Lincoln. We got a really weak CBS signal from Billings, Montana. We were 2 hours away from it. But in parallels to what Suzanne said, I had a very similar thing where I'm an only child living in the middle of nowhere. My imagination is my best friend. And whatever books I read, whether comics I read, whatever TV shows I watched, and there's really no one out there to play with. I mean, there were no kids my age anywhere nearby, and you were close. The nearest places I had friends were literally in Lame Deer or in Colstrip, which is where I went to school, which is a 30-mile drive away. So my only friends were that. You said what?
I said 4 more hills away.
Huh?
4 hills away.
Yeah.
That's so. So yeah, my only real friends were rocks because I was into geology and I wanted to study dinosaurs and the pets we had on the property. So yeah, that's kind of like with Suzanne with needing to use your imagination all that time. That's kind of what I needed. So that's kind of what developed out of that because I had to keep myself occupied somehow.
All right, my follow-up question to this is, we're looking at a graphic artist, we're looking at a videographer and photographer and a writer. Say you get a sudden burst of inspiration, but you're using the bathroom. What do you do with that? Like you're very busy and you're going to be there a while. How do you keep that inspiration in your mind and fresh going on?
I like to call somebody immediately and tell them what I'm thinking about.
Call someone
while I'm on the toilet, yeah.
By the way, I'm passing a big one. I've got this idea. Okay, sit down. Here's the pitch.
Hanging
sit down. I am. I want to stand up.
Here I'll answer it. So I'm going to get asked to be serious about this. I spend a certain amount of time every day, and even like when I wake up in the morning and I go to bed at night, where I am, I'll say fantasizing, but I am working out plot details in my books. So before I go to bed, right when I wake up in the morning, so if I'm occupied in doing something else, I'm not going to forget that or forget the inspiration because I'm already constantly every day thinking of stuff. And then I just kind of store it away in my brain. And then I go, when I have time, I go and write it down. I know a lot of writers, they do outlines because they can't paste the novel or they can't remember everything, or maybe they do sticky notes all over the damn house. Or I have a girlfriend that has her grandmother's quilt and puts sticky notes on that to remind herself to add this to the story or do that. But I don't have to do that in the sense, like I said, my books play out like a movie in my head. So after I've already plotted it out, it's already locked in my mind kind of, so I don't forget. So when that great inspiration comes, it just flows into the rest of the story. So I don't forget. And it's just, I think it's different for me as a writer as maybe your other two guests, right? Because Danny's got to go run and try to draw it down before he gets it. And I don't know if John has to get it on camera or just take notes, but I just kind of remember it. So I don't forget.
So Susanne, I have a question for you. Do you have a million book ideas in your head right now that are just waiting for their turn? Or do you, every time you finish one book, kind of have to start from the top again? It's okay, now what do I want to do?
Quite honestly, like I said, since I've been writing a book every year of my life, the inventory, and not writing some of this stuff I've written in the past, and no one's ever going to read it because it's crap and it was me honing my craft. But a lot of the books that I've written, I can go back to those and the plots are good, and I've already rewritten 2 books. Yeah. I haven't published them yet, but they're in the works. But 2 books I wrote like 20 years ago. And I've got another trilogy that I wrote, say, 30 years ago. It's medieval, dark fantasy that I want to go back and see how it reads. Can I rewrite it and use it? So, yeah, there are other ideas. And if I have them, I jot them down. But I tell you, over time, my brain has become so damn disciplined that I stay on track. And I finish one project before I jump to the other. If I get crazy ideas or something, I try to use those in the story I'm working on. And then if I can, it's just something I've got to jot down. I'll type in a few sentences of ideas and then put them in miscellaneous on the computer, and maybe I'll go back to them, maybe I won't.
Now, you say that you rewrite books. Are you taking the same plot and just taking the exact same book and adding better language to it, things that you think make more sense? Or are you taking that plot and that general idea and kind of turning it into a whole new story?
I go in and kind of keep what I have, but since I've grown up and become an adult, and some of my, maybe some of the plot lines or the subplots are maybe a little bit immature, not worthy of the book. So I in essence rewrite the book, but use what's there. Because
Okay.
my mode of writing is whenever I come up with an idea, I sit down and I immediately write a skeleton draft of the entire book. So say the book, whether it's 300 or 500 pages, I sit down and write the whole damn thing. And then I go back and then I'm going to rewrite it and work on it 10 more times and add all the research and the other information, kind of like baking a cake in the kitchen. Each time you add an ingredient and then you're adding more until you finally have a cake. So when I go to the old cakes, I'm just reworking them and rewriting them because my writing style, and Denny can really identify with this because his drawing is improved over the ages. So my writing style is improved. So I just go back and I rewrite what's there. And like I said, some books are shit, and I can't. I use that word. I got to use it. Yay!
Yeah, we got two more time.
Yay!
Two more time.
Some I can't salvage, and they'll never see the light of day. But some of them are pretty good, and so I can just rework them and make them better.
Well, definitely. I look at my photographs and, stuff that I did even just, a couple years ago. I'll say, okay, I know now what I hate about these images. And so I want to try to do that again with, whether it's a different model or it's different, resources, different lighting, and just take the things that really drove me nuts about that work to begin with and say, okay, let's try it again, see what happens this time. So I get it. Yeah.
So we got a couple of questions from the Peanut Gallery. Hey. Elizabeth asks, so the secret to creativity is lack of access to TV. Well, what hope is there for
Yes.
What hope is there for the next generation?
Well, they should actually be even more. They have just this panoply of ideas coming at them at all times. And so I see it going, one of two ways. You either feel like every story that can be told has been told, or you find a way to take that idea of all these stories already existing out there and put your own spin on it. Everybody is different. Everybody's unique. And so it shouldn't matter how much you have access to, but what you take with the inspiration that you're given and how you interpret that with your own personal touches.
What do you guys think? Suzanne, Denny?
I don't think the younger generation has really anything to worry about. I think with each decade and new groups or new people that are born with each decade, you're going to have a different, unique approach to how you do art, whether you write or paint or film or take pictures. And as technology advances, you're going to have unique and different twists on the way you do things. So I think it's rather exciting. And so I think the younger generation should take advantage of everything they have now that we didn't have before and do even more.
Nice.
Denny, the thing that comes to my mind is that with art technique, just like it is a trade skill. Writing is a trade skill. Movie making is a trade skill. Art is a trade skill. And part of the way that we learn, especially in this current environment where we're saturated with media, I mean, it is literally, give me 5 seconds, I can have Netflix running with a show right now. And give Suzanne probably 2 seconds, she could probably have a book done, ready to go to the printer. But because of that, I think that helps out a lot of creativity, because since it's a trade skill, what you learn builds on top of it. And when people go and do something, they're building on top of what they learned. And if they don't know how to do that, they look up how to do that because other people have done it before. And they build on top of that, and they build on top of that. And their own easiness builds on top of that to where it makes it kind of their own unique thing. To answer kind of like the whole creativity thing, I don't think we're running out of ideas, although certainly a lot of ideas are being recycled. And that's not necessarily a bad idea, because a lot of our current big pop culture icons are already rehashes of stuff that's already been done. I mean, if you want to look at, satirists, if you want to look at like the Daily Show with Jon Stewart or Trevor Noah, I mean, Jon Stewart always thought himself as a great satirist, and those guys have been around forever doing the same exact thing. But they build upon one another, and just like artists build upon one another, movie makers and aspiring movie makers like will look at John and see how he's done his stuff, and they'll build on top of that knowledge, which doesn't necessarily increase creativity, but gives you a different idea about how to approach a problem. I mean, if I've got a problem trying to draw a certain scene or what I should look for in a composition, I can go to the breadth of the Googles and find the picture I'm looking for, or find the tutorial I'm looking for to help me understand what I need to do.
Mhm.
And in a way that's terrifying, and that's exceedingly exciting, because it's terrifying that we have such a powerful option, but it's exciting because that option's there, and then people don't have to go find the hermit in the cabin to figure out how to write a zombie novel.
Right.
They can go online and see what other people have done, and they get to take what they learn from that, and take what they learn from writing, and build on top of that to improve themselves. And with that approach does come some degree of creativity, because as you work on this stuff, you let your own imagination work, which I've got a kind of a torrid history with fan projects, fan fiction, fan art, stuff like that, and other fan projects. But the fan fiction and fan art I've done has improved me further down the line as a story writer and creator, as well as an artist. So all of it builds together in a nice little ball of nebulous creativity and inspiration.
Yeah, one of the comments here in the peanut gallery was that Batman equals Zorro, where it's you see a lot of these same tropes happen over and over and over, with just a slight twist with each artist, like especially each artist who does Batman. I mean, that's the same character, but just a little switch for individuality, and is changed. And I think what you're really getting at is a fairly famous line that says, "Great artists borrow." Wait, no. Good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Well,
And,
I mean,
that's,
this goes all the way back to Noah and Gilgamesh and creation myths. I mean, you could go back as far as you want to and see that, you take one story, it made a really good campfire story at one point for one culture, and then it moves on to the next one, and they get to put their own spin on it just through the generations. And that's kind of the whole point of storytelling to begin with. And whether it's graphic novels or books or movies or whatever it is, whenever you're creating something, you're ultimately creating a story. And you're always borrowing from the past. So
it's also because humans by nature are storytellers. We're a very oral, we're a very story driven species, because we live for the story. We live for the excitement, from the campfire stories to the dirty jokes talked about in the bar, to the this is what happened last time we got together and drank like this. He did this and it went like this, and everyone has a good laugh. We love telling stories, and we love hearing stories, because we're very story oriented people or species. Because I think part of that ties into what stories told us as an ancient culture, is because stories were parables. For, like, the original Red Riding Hood was a parable of don't talk to strangers. Mm-hmm. Literally, because in the original Red Riding Hood, the wolf wins.
Yeah.
The huntsman does not come and save everyone does not come and save them at the last minute. The wolf eats the grandma and Little Red, and I just ruined your childhood, everyone, and I'm not sorry.
No, I miss the lack of happy endings. Frankly, all these storybook endings are kind of pissing me off. I'd rather have the wolf win every time. So
yeah, I kind of like the movies where everybody dies at the end. I don't have a problem with that either.
I'm not rooting for anybody except for the bad guy. Somebody needs to get fit.
Sometimes the bad guy wins, and I think part of the storybook ending is we want that escapism, where we want the injustices to be paid for in blood. And the wicked will get their comeuppance, which is something that's been going around for the last 6,000 years. So that's a common tale, in especially in a lot of mythologies, of the villain getting their comeuppance. But want to know a good story where the villain doesn't get his comeuppance and the hero just gets screwed over every time?
America 2017.
Yes and no, but I was going to say something older. I was going to say the 12 Labors of Hercules.
Sure.
Because Hera drives Hercules mad. He kills his family because Hera drove him crazy. Then he has to atone for the deaths by performing these 12 great feats for the gods. He doesn't get his family back. Hera's still a witch. That's with a W.
Oh, you almost got one.
Thank you for keeping that PG-13.
Right. She's still a witch, even to Hercules later on, because I think she drives him crazy and he kills himself. And then Hercules ends up getting a brand new family out of it. But yeah, that's the villain wins. The hero is still traumatized. Terrible story if it compared to all of our storybook endings, but still a great, great parable of don't mess with your mother-in-law.
we've got about 5 minutes before the great people here at GameNet are going to kick us out, so they can end their sales day. They got lots of great stuff going on down here. You should check out all the new comics. We'll be talking more and more about the comics from GameNet Entertainment, both on Iowa and Mass Street. We did have another question, and this is for Denny, from Ian. How much inspiration do you draw from your paleontology background?
A lot more than you'd think. Because in paleontology, since I've always been a fan of dinosaurs, I like the monsters. And the thing that I got the best out of my paleontology background for inspiration was understanding anatomy. And understanding anatomy, I can actually I've been complimented many times on my monster art because they look real, they look anatomically correct. Because to try and draw the thing, you have to understand how it's built, and that's going to help you understand how it's supposed to move, how it's supposed to bend. And that's some really good advice I've seen from other books. And so understanding the skeletal structure, the basic building blocks of the entire body, especially for, all vertebrates, is super important when you're trying to build something like that. So that's a lot of inspiration from there, and at least a lot of understanding in anatomy came from that.
Very cool.
Can I do two quick plugs?
Yeah, I was just gonna get into getting the plugs for everyone with the new project.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry about that at all. Because one of the things I love about being able to share these kind of panels with everyone is I want to hear about your new projects, and I want other people to know how to get in contact with all the projects that you're wanting to promote. So, Suzanne, you want to start?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry I was impatient.
No
Tomorrow on Amazon, on Kindle, my book, Immortal Hearts, is 99 cents. And then for the next 2 days, the price slowly goes up. So if you've not read Immortal, you can get it for 99 cents, and that's great. And then the other cool thing is on July 1st, on Saturday, I'm with 5 other authors on an indie fantasy book giveaway. And you can find it on my website. You can find it on my Facebook, and you can find it on my Twitter. Under Suzanne Lambden, and you can see the other authors. And if you sign up, and you're signing up for our mailing list, you can win 6 free novels and I think a $60 Amazon card and a couple of other cash prizes. So if you're listening, look me up or look up Derek Barton or Natalie Wright or Kim Wayland. You can find the ad on my Facebook, like I said, and then just sign up and write. You get 6 free novels and you get money. I think it's might be even $120. I'm not sure, but I know $60 for sure to spend with Amazon. So check that out.
Awesome. That's very cool. Suzanne, I also want to hear, can you give a quick pitch about your zombie books and then also the new books that you're working on?
Sure. The Dead Heart series takes place in modern times in the Colorado Rockies. Your survivors are up on Pikes Peak when the book series starts about a year in to the zombie apocalypse. But the fun thing about this book series, you're dealing with a virus that continually mutates. And so by the time you get to book 5, there are at least 10 different kinds of zombies. You find out the virus created the ancient gods and goddesses, demons. You've got Odin pops up later in the book. There's just, with each book, I added a different genre so I could do more. So there's time travel. It's a different zombie apocalypse than you've ever read because it's kind of fantasy supernatural. My heroes and heroines, they are really teenagers. And then some of them who are infected develop superpowers. And so then they're up against the ancient gods and goddesses. So it's really a pretty cool series. And then the Realm of Magic is dark fantasy. And it is, and it's funny, I wrote this before Dead Hearts. So you're dealing with 3 clans, Raven Clan, who are scavengers on battlefield and pick up weapons and armor. And then Wolf Clan that they pick up the dead or they pick up prisoners and sell them as slaves. And then Eagle Clan that is taking military documents and officers and nobles and then selling them for a price. So it's your heroine in this story is a natural born witch in a realm that has outlawed magic. And the book opens and she's on a battlefield and she finds 3 items, 2 of which are magical, which are seen by other people in the Civil War that realize, hey, this gal's a witch. We want to get a hold of her. She can find magical swords. And it's really about a quest for her finding the ancestral Raven sword that goes with her clan and then whether or not she is going to claim the throne herself. But I managed to toss in, there's the Wolf Clan. I'll just tell you right up. So they're werewolves. but they're called Woofin. And so these things, it's pretty damn cool. So the men in this clan, when they bust out of their armor, they're already turning into that 7-foot tall Woofin form, and you're already killing everything in front of them, and they regenerate if you cut their arm off. And so it's just a lot of sorcery and strange stuff. There's zombies. I tossed zombies in there. They're in some secret hiding place, and it's just fun and different. And again, as you know, Mark, I like to write strong female characters and female characters that a lot of my readers are young adults, so teenagers. I like to give them a female heroine that they actually cheer, that doesn't have to depend on a man, that can certainly lead the army herself and go kick ass, do the same things a guy would. But if the guy wants to ride along with her, then certainly he may do so. So, and that's kind of what I've become known for. I like to write about female empowerment. And then at the same time, I don't want to take anything away from men, because I do love men.
Yeah, so, there you go. Right on.
So those are my stories in those series. And so people, please check them out. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah,
99 cents tomorrow. Yeah.
99 cents tomorrow.
That's quite a deal for that much cool stuff. Not going to lie.
That's right.
John, tell me about the Wichita Wings.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, we're about 3 months away from doing any sort of release on out here in Kansas, which will be 1 year from our world premiere date. So we're looking at kind of just doing a release on that. And once that's out, I'll be putting more information for that, which I'm excited about. The Wings, documentary work can be slow and tedious. And so we may be a long way away still from getting that project in anybody's hands. But our goal right now would be to have it not this year's Tallgrass Film Festival, but next year's. But I mean, that's always up in the air, just depending on how fast things move forward. So the big thing right now that I'm working on with that is I need dancers and models to come see me on Saturday, because I'm trying to teach a dance to them for this video that we're working on. So if you know anybody who wants to dance or wants to be a part of this video and they like the 80s, have them come see me and give me a call. So beyond that, we've got a good chunk of the interviews done for the film. We've got, a lot of those players from the Wichita Wings back in the 1980s were spread out from all over the world. We had people from England, London, and stuff, and so we're trying to reach out to as many of them as we can to get as many faces that were familiar to the community at that point back in this film. So hopefully we can pull that off, and we've got a lot more work to do this summer, and keep working toward it. And then if anybody wants to do some photography stuff too, I always want to keep collaborating and doing more work that will inspire others to do their own work. So,
excellent. Denny, tell us about Marshall Star.
Marshall Star, as the wonderful pitch I've been pitching it as, is a sci-fi western fantasy space opera. Four things everyone can find something really cool about. It features a marshal who is an interplanetary police enforcer, and her 3 deputies as a team of 4 who are currently going around and stopping criminals from terrorizing their little protectorate of what's called Providence, and the main spaceport Independence, which is kind of modeled a little bit after kind of like the old Oregon Trail, where Independence, I believe Independence, Missouri, was the last stretch of humanity or civilization you got to before you went off into the wild frontier. But it's got magic, it's got aliens, it's got fantasy races. It's got, I think, a really kick-ass female lead who we're writing and treating as a very strong character with her own flaws and as a person. We've got cyborgs, we've got living computers, we've got spaceships, outlaws, magic. It's a whole bunch of fun, and you can find Marshall Star online at marshallstar.thecomicseries.com for the website. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to give us any cool support, we do. I do live streams because these guys have all been oohing and awing over my work as I'm working on it during the podcast here. I do live streams. We also do. We go over more stuff like other races in the universe, other points in the entire universe, because it's set in a merging set of 2 merging galaxies that are coming together after millions and billions of years, and it's just a massive set of worlds, and a lot of cool stuff mixed in there. So we do information like that. I show comic progressions. If you join the Patreon and pay through some of the tiers, you guys can also get the comic before it's published on the site. And actually, starting with chapter 2, it's in color.
Oh,
opposed to the
Nice.
black and white tone work of Chapter 1. And Chapter 1 is currently for sale on the DR Studios Etsy store. If you look up Decorative Reality Studios or DR Studios on Etsy, you'll find it. So you can go ahead and buy your own copy of Chapter 1. We also have Twitter and Facebook, also under Marshall Star. So if you guys want to keep up on that. Actually, some cool news on that front. We have a couple of reviews coming in. One is from Comic Exchange. They're a YouTube review group. I also got an interview with the Nerdophiles that should be coming out probably in another week or two, and another review coming from the Worst Comic Podcast Ever.
excellent.
Who I met at Smallville, and I was discussing stuff with them, and they said they give it a look, so I'll be excited to see when they get that. So lots of cool stuff, and I would like to give a shout out that I'm not doing this on my own. I do have a writer who's my co-creator at this point. His name is Declan Burke. He's the vocal philosopher at vocalphilosopher.com. He does voice editing. He does voice actor work. He's done acting work, especially in the new upcoming Death Note movie, where Willem Dafoe is the Shirigami, which means he doesn't need makeup.
Nice.
And he's actually a background character in some of those. And if anyone is familiar with Romantically Apocalyptic, he is the voice of Pilot.
Okay. I'm
lot
not
of
familiar,
cool
but
stuff.
I'll go with that. Yeah.
So a lot
Right
of cool
on.
stuff.
Hey, I want to thank everyone for watching, tuning in on this live stream for Con Artist. I want to make sure to thank the three of you. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, John. Thank you, Denny. Special thanks to Cuddle Buddy Frankie, who couldn't be with us this evening, but got us set up. I want to thanks to the Peanut Gallery. And then special thanks to executive producer Larry and the animal trainer Charlene, or animal handler Charlene, for also making sure that we can do this. I want to thank the folks here at Game Nut for having us. What's up, Denny?
So did the animal handler handle the Peanut Gallery then? Is that what you're saying?
Well, not recently, because there's still legalities we have to work out with that and how.
Right.
Yeah, the Peanut Gallery handles themselves. So
they all need their shots, don't they?
Nice. All right. Well,
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We'll be streaming Con Artists again this weekend from SawesomeCon, and then next Thursday from the Alamo Draft House for the opening of Spider-Man: Homecoming, and we'll be talking to some cosplayers there, and maybe some other people who might or might not be in some movies. So we'll talk to you guys later, and have a good evening. Thank you once again.
You too. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Mark. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, thank you so much for everything. Suzanne, I'm sorry your Skype kind of looks like it got cut on a picture. So, but
Did it stuck?
Yeah, it looks like it got stuck.
I thought it was just my end, so.
No, I think it got stuck on her end, unfortunately. All right. I got to tear down and get out of here. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you. Thank you so much for filling in.
Hey, not a problem, man.
See ya.
See ya.
All right.